The Agalarovs and the June 9, 2016 Trump Tower meeting. Introduction and findings. Aras Agalarov, a prominent Russian oligarch originally from Azerbaijan, and his son Iman Agalarov, a musician and real estate executive, have since 2013 maintained both a business and personal relationship with Donald Trump. That relationship began with the planning of the 2013 Miss Universe pageant in Moscow, and subsequently included negotiations over a Trump Tower Moscow in 2014. Aras and Emin Agalarov were later involved in arranging a June 9, 2016 meeting at Trump Tower between Natalia Veselnitskaya, a Russian lawyer with government connections, several of her associates, and Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort. That meeting was arranged based on an offer of derogatory information on Hillary Clinton, which was ultimately not delivered. The committee sought to understand the relationship between Donald Trump and the Agalarov family in Russia, as well as the relationship between the Trump Organization and the Agalarovs company, the Crocus Group, more broadly. The committee also sought to understand the nature of the Agalarovs and Veselnitskaya's connection to the Russian government and Russian intelligence services. In this effort, the committee interviewed a number of individuals with direct insight regarding the Agalarovs and non-public awareness of the Trump-Agalarov relationship's history or specific events. Nevertheless, the committee faced significant limitations in its efforts to fully understand the relationship with the Agalarovs. In particular, events related to the Agalarovs often occurred in Russia, which significantly limited the availability of documents and witnesses that the committee sought. Additionally, the passage of time complicated the collection of documents and reliable testimony regarding some aspects of the relationship. Witness testimony, while helpful, was often incomplete or contradicted other testimony or documents. The committee was often not able to reconcile some of these challenges. The absence of cooperation from several individuals hindered the committee's ability to fully address some aspects of the relationship. The relationship between Donald Trump and the Agalarovs, which began in 2013, continued through the 2016 U.S. election. This relationship included both business and personal communications, and was composed of in-person visits both in Russia and in the United States, as well as written correspondence, text messages, calls, social media, and gifts. The relationship also extended to Agalarov associates and family members, and to Trump associates and family members, who in some cases were in frequent contact. The Agalarovs, who have ties to the Russian government, may have been aware of Trump's intention to run for president prior to the campaign's public announcement. Aras Agalarov was personally involved in pushing for the meeting between Veselnitskaya and the Trump campaign, and also pushed for a second meeting for Veselnitskaya following the election, which did not take place. The committee found that Agalarov likely sought to arrange these meetings on behalf of individuals affiliated with the Russian government. The committee found that it was the intent of the campaign participants in the meeting, particularly Donald Trump Jr., to receive derogatory information that would be of benefit to the campaign from a source known, at least by Trump Jr., to have connections to the Russian government. Actions were taken by campaign participants to operationalize that intent. The committee found no reliable evidence that information of benefit to the Trump campaign was transmitted at the June 9, 2016 meeting, or that Trump had foreknowledge of the June 9, 2016 meeting. The information that Natalia Veselnitskaya, the Russian lawyer, offered during the June 9, 2016 meeting, and planned to offer again at the follow-up meeting requested by Aras Agalarov, was part of a broader influence operation targeting the United States that was coordinated, at least in part, with elements of the Russian government. That Russian effort was focused on U.S. sanctions against Russia. Some of the same information used by Veselnitskaya at the meeting was also used, redacted. The committee found no evidence that the meeting participants from the campaign were aware of this Russian influence operation when accepting the meeting or participating in it. Participants on both sides of the meeting were ultimately disappointed with how it transpired. The committee assesses that at least 2 participants in the June 9, 2016 meeting, Veselnitskaya and Renat Akhmetshin, have significant connections to the Russian government, including the Russian intelligence services. Those connections, particularly regarding Veselnitskaya, were far more extensive and concerning than what had been publicly known, and neither Veselnitskaya nor Akhmetshin were forthcoming with the committee regarding those connections. Both Veselnitskaya and Akhmetshin may have sought, in some cases, to obfuscate the true intent of their work in the United States. Around the time of the 2013 Miss Universe pageant in Moscow, the Agalarovs employed Artem Klyushin to help promote Emin Agalarov on social media. In that capacity, Klyushin and his then-wife spent some time with Trump during the pageant weekend. Klyushin is a Kremlin-linked bot developer who has supported Russian social media influence operations in other countries. The committee did not find information indicating that Trump had awareness of this at the time or any subsequent communication with Klyushin. Background on the Agalarovs. Aras Agalarov is a Russian oligarch, originally from Azerbaijan, and is the head of the Crocus Group. Crocus is involved in construction and real estate development, as well as ownership and operation of shopping centers and other businesses in Russia. Agalarov is based in Moscow, and his net worth is approximately $1.7 billion. The Agalarovs have significant ties to Russian organized crime and have been closely affiliated with individuals involved in murder, prostitution, weapons trafficking, kidnapping, extortion, narcotics trafficking, money laundering, and other significant criminal enterprises. Some of those activities have extended outside of Russia, including to the United States. Agalarov and his associates have also, for years, participated in a variety of large-volume redacted. Aras Agalarov also has significant ties to the Russian government, including to individuals involved in influence operations targeting the 2016 U.S. election. He has access to President Putin and to Putin's close aide Dmitry Peskov. Agalarov is also an associate of Yuri Chaika, who until 2020 was the Russian Prosecutor General, a position which is similar to that of the U.S. Attorney General. Agalarov may have a connection to First Deputy Premier Igor Shuvalov, and is also connected to Mikhail Mishustin, the now Prime Minister of Russia. The following 4 pages are redacted. According to a Russian press report, in October 2010, when Russian intelligence held a celebration for the 60th anniversary of the GRU's Special Missions Department, the event was hosted at Agalarov's Crocus City Hall. Aras Agalarov is an associate of Natalia Veselnitskaya, a Russian lawyer who has connections to Russian intelligence and security services. Agalarov has also been a longtime employer of Irakli Kavaledze, who has been involved in probable money laundering activity on behalf of Agalarov in the United States. Kavaledze is a Georgian-American businessman who immigrated to the United States in 1991. He has been employed by Aras Agalarov and the Crocus Group since 1989. At times in his work for the Crocus Group, Kavaledze would travel frequently to Moscow, sometimes for extended periods. According to a report by the United States General Accounting Office, GAO, in October 2000, Kavaledze has been involved in a range of activities in the United States that raise serious concerns regarding Russian money laundering. According to GAO, companies created by Kavaledze established approximately 2,000 corporations, some of which had made-up names for Russian brokers. Kavaledze's companies moved more than $1 billion in wire transfer transactions into 236 accounts at 2 U.S. banks, most of which was then transferred back to accounts in Eastern Europe, again for Russian brokers. Kavaledze has insisted that he had no involvement in any wrongdoing, calling the GAO investigation a, quote, witch hunt, close quote. Redacted. Emin Agalarov is the son of Aras Agalarov. He is executive vice president of Crocus Group and is also a musician. Emin Agalarov is connected to Grigory Lepsveridis, who has been sanctioned by the United States for his role in Russian organized crime. Emin Agalarov previously employed Artem Klyushin, a Kremlin-linked bot developer who has supported Russian influence operations, to help promote Agalarov on social media. Emin Agalarov grew up in part in New Jersey, but is currently based in Moscow. Redacted. According to Michael Cohen, around the time of the 2013 Miss Universe pageant in Moscow, a friend, Georgy Ritskaladia, cautioned that he, quote, did not care for the Agalarovs, thought they were gangsters, and didn't do business with them, close quote. According to Cohen, when Ritskaladia heard that Donald Trump Jr. was considering a real estate development project with the Agalarovs, Ritskaladia again warned Cohen that the Agalarovs, and particularly Aras Agalarov, quote, are really rough, close quote. Ritskaladzia's description to the committee of his limited relationship with the Agalarovs did not include this information. Origins of the Trump-Agalarov relationship. Donald Trump first met the Agalarovs in 2013 in an effort to bring the annual Miss Universe pageant to Moscow. The Miss Universe organization had been co-owned by Trump since 1996. There was at least one previous attempt to bring the pageant to Moscow prior to 2013. In 2005, Paula Shugart, the president of the Miss Universe organization, took an exploratory visit to Moscow to determine its suitability for hosting the event. After Shugart's trip, Trump wrote a letter to Mikhail Kusnirovich, a Russian businessman whom Shugart met on the trip. In his letter, Trump praised Moscow as a, quote, spectacular venue, close quote, for the Miss Universe pageant. The report contains a copy of the letter written to Kusnirovich from Trump. October 25, 2005. Mr. Mikhail Kusnirovich. Dear Mikhail, Paula Shugart informed me of her recent trip to Moscow and how impressed she was by you and your organization. There is no doubt Moscow would be a spectacular venue for the Miss Universe pageant. Moscow has everything it takes to make it a destination city. It's a newly vibrant city along with the magnificent and fabled history. The millions of international viewers of Miss Universe would surely appreciate that combination. I sincerely hope we are able to make it work, and I thank you for all of your efforts and interest in the pageant. With best regards, sincerely, Donald J. Trump. End of letter. Shugart recalled only meeting with Kusnirovich, not with any Russian government officials while she was in Moscow. Efforts to bring the pageant to Moscow at that time were unsuccessful. According to Rob Goldstone, who later served as Emin Agaralov's promoter and aide, there was, quote, too much red tape, close quote, making bringing the Miss Universe pageant to Moscow, quote, too difficult to do, close quote. Planning Miss Universe Moscow. The first correspondence the committee is aware of regarding Miss Universe Moscow occurred on January 7, 2013, when Emil Kiral emailed Emin Agalarov and wrote that she enjoyed meeting him, suggested that they meet with her, quote, contact, close quote, at Miss Universe, and suggested that Agalarov could perform at a Miss Universe pageant that was hosted in Moscow. Kiral also attached a slide presentation on the potential benefits of hosting a Miss Universe pageant in Russia. Agalarov responded, thanking her and saying that he would look at the slides. It does not appear that any further involvement with Kiral took place. Separately, also in early 2013, Rob Goldstone reached out to a previous winner of the Miss Universe pageant regarding a potential role for the woman in an upcoming Emin Agalarov music video. Although the woman was unavailable, she connected Goldstone with Shugart, the president of the Miss Universe organization, as someone who might be able to make another recommendation for the music video. In March 2013, Shugart offered to meet with Goldstone and Emin Agalarov. During the meeting, Goldstone suggested that Agalarov could perform at a future Miss Universe pageant. According to Goldstone, Emin Agalarov asked about hosting the pageant in Moscow. Shugart explained that she had previously hoped to host the pageant there, but those efforts were unsuccessful. Shugart identified Crocus City Hall as a potential location and was impressed to learn that Emmett Agalarov's father owned the venue. Emmett Agalarov then asked Shugart about Miss Universe's fee structure and about what would be involved in bringing the pageant to Russia. Goldstone said that Agalarov was optimistic that he would be able to perform at the pageant if it were held at Crocus City Hall, and believed that it would generate international exposure for his music career. In part to foster this new relationship, Shugart offered Miss Universe 2012 for Agalarov's music video. Kavaladze recalled that Aras Agalarov was initially very skeptical about hosting the pageant, but Emmett Agalarov was excited and lobbied his father. Kavaladze believed that Crocus would lose a substantial amount of money and repeatedly advised against hosting the event. On April 18th, Goldstone emailed Agalarov to tell him that Trump and the Miss Universe organization had met and were willing to, quote, pull out all the stops to get this to Moscow, close quote. In May 2013, the Miss Universe organization was under increasing pressure to secure a location for the upcoming pageant. At that time, Emmett Agalarov invited Shugart and several other Miss Universe representatives to Moscow to visit the venue and other related facilities such as hotels. During that visit to Moscow, Aras Agalarov agreed to pay to host the pageant. Despite Shugart providing recommendations regarding financing structures that might involve governments or tourism departments, as well as private entities, the Agalarovs indicated that the financing for the Moscow pageant would be strictly private. Ultimately, Crocus Group paid approximately $6 million for a licensing fee and incurred an additional $6 million in expenses. The Agalarovs only recouped about $2 million in sales, resulting in an approximately $10 million loss for the event. According to Shugart, Moscow was one of the most lucrative deals that the Miss Universe organization had ever participated in. Following the commitment from Agalarov to finance the pageant, Shugart notified Donald Trump. Shugart recalled that Trump was, quote, very happy, close quote, and believed the Agalarovs were, quote, the real deal, close quote. Shugart recalled that Trump told her she was, quote, finally introducing him to the people he needed to be meeting, close quote. At the conclusion of the Russia trip, a letter of intent was signed. Goldstone recalled that Trump wanted to announce the location of the upcoming Miss Universe pageant during the awards ceremony for the Miss USA pageant in Las Vegas, Nevada, in June 2013. Goldstone recalled that the groups were, quote, very much under pressure to get that all agreed, so a contract could be signed in Vegas, close quote. Shugart told the committee that, quote, once Aras decided it was happening, we moved very quickly, close quote, and the two sides drafted a contract. Kavaladze, who served as Crocus's lead on the contract, told the committee that he worked with representatives from the Miss Universe organization for a month and a half to prepare the documents and final contract that needed to be signed to finalize the deal. Shugart told the committee that Trump made no input on the details of the deal. The first meeting, Las Vegas. In June 2013, the Miss Universe organization invited the Agalarovs to Las Vegas to sign the contract and make the announcement alongside Trump during the Miss USA pageant. Arriving on June 15, 2013, the day before the pageant, Trump and the Agalarovs met for the first time in the lobby of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Following their initial introduction, Trump and the Agalarovs went upstairs to a suite to sign the final contract for Miss Universe Moscow. Shugart and Aras Agalarov were the signatories. Roman Benyaminov, a close friend and aide to Emmett Agalarov, recalled that at the signing, the Miss Universe organization group presented Aras Agalarov with a bottle of tequila to celebrate the occasion. The same day, Goldstone recalled receiving a phone call from Keith Schiller, Donald Trump's head of security. According to Goldstone, Schiller said, quote, I hear from Paula that you guys are going to dinner tonight. Mr. Trump would like to join, close quote. Goldstone continued, quote, I hung up. I called Emmett and said, you have a guest tonight. Mr. Trump's now coming to dinner. And he goes, very funny. I said, no, he is coming to dinner. Close quote. The dinner that night ultimately included members of the Agalarov family, Trump Organization, Miss Universe Organization, and a number of Emin Agalarov's friends. Michael Cohen attended with Trump and Schiller. During the meal, Goldstone recalled being approached by Schiller, who asked Goldstone if the Agalarov group had plans after the meal. Goldstone recalled telling Schiller that one of Emin Agalarov's associates, Murtazi Akbar, was an investor in a club called The Act, and that the group planned to go. According to Goldstone, Schiller responded by telling Goldstone that, quote, Mr. Trump wants to come, close quote. Following dinner, the group, which included the Agalarovs, their associates, and the Trump Organization group, went to The Act. Goldstone described The Act as, quote, a bit Cirque du Soleil and a bit burlesque thrown into one, close quote. Cohen recalled that the club was, quote, more than a burlesque club, close quote, and was a, quote, wild place, close quote. The group, including Trump, stayed at The Act for several hours. The following day, there was a dress rehearsal and the Miss USA pageant at which heiress and Emin Agalarov sat beside Trump. The pageant was followed by the official Miss Universe Moscow announcement, a ceremonial signing of the contract, and a press conference. On June 17, 2013, Emin Agalarov instructed that a Crocus Group and Agalarov estate brochure be sent by messenger to Trump. On June 18, 2013, Donald Trump wrote on Twitter, quote, do you think Putin will be going to the Miss Universe pageant in November in Moscow? If so, will he become my new best friend? Close quote. The same day, Emin Agalarov responded on Twitter, quote, Mr. at Real Donald Trump, anyone you meet becomes your best friend, so I'm sure Mr. Putin will not be an exception in Moscow at Crocus City Hall, close quote. Planning Miss Universe Moscow. Following the contract signing in Las Vegas in June, planning began for the November 2013 Miss Universe pageant in Moscow. In addition to arranging the pageant itself, Trump and heiress Agalarov repeatedly contacted President Putin and his staff both to invite Putin to the event and to offer a personal meeting with Trump. On June 21, 2013, Goldstone emailed Emin Agalarov with the subject line, quote, Putin, close quote, to inform him that, quote, he, Trump, has a personal email address for VP, close quote, but had asked for a mailing address for the letter. On June 22, 2013, Goldstone emailed Emin Agalarov the text of a draft letter from Trump inviting Putin to attend the Miss Universe pageant and requesting a personal private meeting in Moscow. The email included the subject line, quote, draft of Putin letter for Donald Trump. Please show to heiress and let me know before I send to Trump, close quote. Emin Agalarov approved. On June 24, 2013, Rona Graf, Trump's assistant, wrote to Shugart informing her that, quote, DT wants to send a letter to Putin inviting him to Miss Universe. I asked Rob G. to draft something we could tweak. If you see the letter below, he references the trip to Moscow by DT in advance of the actual pageant. What is he talking about? Close quote. Graf included a version of the draft letter from Trump to President Putin written by Rob Goldstone, which stated, quote, I have always valued your kind offer for me to visit Moscow, and I will be doing so later this year prior to the contest. I want to personally invite you as my guest of honor to the November 9th Miss Universe pageant, and would also hope to meet privately with you during my stay in Moscow, close quote. Later, on June 24th, Shugart responded to Graf's email, writing, quote, I have no idea. I'm finding out now, close quote. Shugart told the committee that she found out that Trump had said to the Agalarovs that he would come a few days earlier to, quote, facilitate a meeting, close quote, with Putin. On June 27, 2013, Goldstone wrote to Emin Agalarov stating that Trump's assistant wanted to know where to send, quote, the letter for Putin, close quote. Emin Agalarov wrote back, quote, on it, close quote. Later that day, Goldstone sent Graf and Shugart the address and email of, quote, who to forward letter from Mr. Trump to President Putin, close quote. and included the mailing address, title, and email address of Dmitry Peskov. In an email, Goldstone explained that this individual, quote, is in direct daily contact with the president and has been briefed to expect an email and physical letter, close quote. On June 27, 2013, Graf emailed a draft letter titled, quote, Dear President Putin, docx, close quote, to an assistant writing, quote, Please print this out for me on DT's heavy letterhead with envelope, close quote. On June 28, 2013, Graf emailed Shugart and Goldstone and attached a final signed copy of the letter. The signed copy had several changes to Goldstone's draft, including the omission of the extended stay in Moscow and the personal meeting request. A copy of the letter is reprinted in the report. It is dated June 26, 2013, addressed to President Vladimir Putin, care of Dmitry Sergeyevich Peskov, Press Secretary of President Vladimir Putin. Dear Mr. President, I hope you have heard by now the exciting news that we are bringing the Miss Universe 2013 pageant to Russia for the first time in the 62-year history of the pageant. We will partner with Crocus Group and Aras Agalarov to stage the event on November 9th at Crocus City Hall. The Miss Universe pageant is watched by over 1 billion people worldwide and is one of the most watched TV shows anywhere in the world. I know that our Moscow pageant will be our biggest and best Miss Universe ever, and we are already overwhelmed with a very positive and extensive response from both international and Russian media. We turned down many other competing countries in favor of Russia. I want to take this opportunity to personally invite you to be my guest of honor in Moscow on November 9th. I know you will have a great time. With best wishes, sincerely, Donald J. Trump, and handwritten in Sharpie, the world's most beautiful women, ! Several months later, on September 9, 2013, planning efforts were focused on securing hotel rooms for the pageant leadership and judges. Goldstone wrote several emails to Kovaladze, Emin Agalarov, Benyaminov, and 3 Russian employees of the Crocus Group regarding hotel options for the pageant. Goldstone wrote that he would like to visit the, quote, Intercontinental Hotel and check out their top suites for Donald Trump to stay, as it is our sponsor hotel group. At the moment, we have him in an $11,000 a night suite at Ritz-Carlton, and I am assured by Trump's office that he is happy to stay at Intercontinental, the top suite, and it should save us a lot of money, close quote. However, later that day, Emin Agalarov wrote to Roman Benyaminov and Crocus employee Katya Kozenkova, directing them to arrange for Trump to stay at the Ritz-Carlton. He wrote, quote, Trump will stay at the Ritz, comply with me, close quote, and requested that room options be sent to him. Roman Benyaminov told the committee that guests of Aras Agalarov had previously had reservations made for them at the Ritz-Carlton for Crocus business. On September 12, 2013, Agalarov and Trump efforts turned back to outreach to Putin. Goldstone wrote to Graf and Shugart with a follow-up request for another signed letter from Trump. Goldstone's request mentioned asking for a personal meeting between Trump and Putin, quote, as discussed, close quote. Goldstone wrote, sent Thursday, September 12, 2013, 4:29 p.m. to Rona Graf, CC Paula Shugart. Subject, letter from Mr. Trump to President Putin. Importance, high. Hi, ladies. I am off to Moscow tomorrow and might have an opportunity to meet with Putin's personal private secretary next week. During the visit, I would bring up the request for Mr. Trump to meet with President Putin during the Miss Universe week as discussed and requested in previous letter to him. It has been suggested that I bring a hand-signed copy of the letter with me in case it is asked for, and also that we put some dates in there, say November 5th to 9th for a meeting, so he could get it on Putin's calendar. Do you think you could maybe add in those dates to the original letter, and I could get an original hand-signed copy? I was thinking maybe Rachel or Larry or even Olivia could bring it next week to Moscow, and I could deliver it, possibly even with Olivia, to his personal secretary, Rob Goldstone. End of message. Shugart told the committee that she understood Goldstone to be discussing meeting with Dmitry Peskov. Shugart said she took Goldstone's outreach regarding Peskov seriously because Goldstone was in close contact with the Agalarovs, and she believed that Aras Agalarov had that level of access to Putin. Graf responded to Goldstone's email, writing, quote, "Not a bad idea. Let me talk to Mr. Trump about it, and I will get back to you ASAP." Close quote. Later, on September 12th, Graf replied, quote, "He'll sign it in the morning, and I'll let you know, Paula, when someone can come over to pick it up." Close quote. Separately, also on September 12th, Goldstone emailed Emin Agalarov, Kavaladze, and Benyaminov. He wrote, quote, "I will have a hand-signed letter from Donald Trump to President Putin asking to meet when he is in Moscow November 5th to 9th. Hopefully, we can get this letter to Peskov or some other person next week in Moscow." Close quote. The June 26th and September 13th letters to Putin are similar, but not the same. Several small changes were made to the June 26th letter, including the re-addition of a line regarding Trump making an extended stay in Moscow and an offer for a personal meeting with Trump separate from the pageant. Shugart said that while she had asked Trump to write letters to heads of state on behalf of Miss Universe, quote, "an invitation like this had never happened before," close quote, and that this was not typical of other foreign pageants they had done elsewhere. On September 18th, Emin Agalarov wrote to Goldstone, simply stating, quote, "Trump's letter is with Peskov. He will pass on to the president," close quote. On September 19th, Goldstone emailed Emin Agalarov, writing that, quote, "According to Trump's office, he is keen to make himself available at any time to meet President Putin, and, if necessary, would fly in earlier on November 6th, close quote. Emin Agalarov told the committee, quote, "Trump was always asking if Putin's coming or not," close quote. Shugart told the committee that during this time period, Trump discussed Putin with her specifically. She recalled, quote, "Donald wanted to meet Putin," close quote, and that, quote, "he wanted to make sure we arranged a meeting," close quote. Shugart told the committee that, quote, "when we would speak in the lead-up to the pageant, he, Trump, wanted to, he just would reiterate his desire to meet Putin," close quote, but he didn't explain why. Shugart told the committee that Trump followed up on the Putin meeting whenever they spoke. She recalled, quote, "That was the reason for a lot of these letters. We were all trying to ensure that this meeting happened for Donald with Mr. Putin because that was the request whenever we spoke about it, whenever we spoke about the pageant and the event," close quote. In addition to the meeting, another topic of focus for pageant organizers and Trump Organization employees was the guests that Trump wanted to bring to the pageant in Moscow. On October 10, 2013, Graf wrote an email titled, quote, "DT's guests on trip to Moscow," close quote, to Shugart. Graf wrote that Trump, quote, "was bringing two guests with him other than Keith Schiller and Michael Cohen. Their names are Alex Saper and Rotem Rosen," close quote. Additionally, in mid-October, there was email correspondence regarding the hotel arrangement for Phil Ruffin, a close friend of Trump, and Ruffin's wife, Oleksandra Nikolayenko. In late October, Graf wrote to Shugart to notify her that Trump had invited a friend, Joe Sinke, to the pageant, and that Sinke would need a room at the Ritz-Carlton and would be flying home with Trump. Despite planning for their attendance, neither Michael Cohen nor Sinke ultimately traveled to Moscow. However, the Ruffins, Alex Saper, and Rotem Rosen did attend. Other information indicates that a Trump acquaintance, David Giovannis, may have attended the pageant. On October 18th, Goldstone drafted an email that Emin Agalarov planned to send to Shugart. The draft email to Shugart stated that, quote, "There is still a huge issue we need to resolve. We have just tabulated our final budget and income and project a shortfall of $8.9 million. Close quote. Emin Agalarov and Goldstone sought a reduction in the $6.5 million licensing fee and believed that Shugart would take the request to Trump. By October 18th, a meeting with Putin still had not been secured, and Graf wrote to Shugart to inform her that Trump would no longer be arriving early in Moscow, but instead would arrive the day before the pageant. On October 28th, Shugart responded, quote, "Could we speak about Mr. Trump's schedule? Aras Agalarov, Emin's father, expressed concern that DT would only be in on November 8th. Apparently in Las Vegas, Mr. Trump told him he would come in a day or two earlier than he normally does. Aras and Sberbank, sick, wanted to arrange a breakfast or lunch with the business leaders of Russia with Mr. Trump as the guest of honor. This is the first time Aras has expressed disappointment about anything." Close quote. Securing Trump's attendance at the Sberbank event may have been particularly important to Aras Agalarov, given his need for financing from the bank for a major upcoming construction project. Despite the change in travel schedule, Shugart told the committee that as the pageant got closer, Trump grew more emphatic about the need to secure the meeting with Putin. On October 23rd, Goldstone sent an email to Emin Agalarov with the subject line, quote, "Putin-Trump meeting?" Close quote. He wrote, quote, "What is the status on a possible meeting between Trump and Mr. Putin? Trump office is asking." Close quote. Later that day, Emin Agalarov replied, "Roman Grachev will find out." Close quote. Grachev, the director of Crocus City Hall, was in touch with Dmitry Peskov and had been involved in the prior transmittal of the letter from Trump to Putin. On October 24th, Goldstone emailed again, pushing for a response on the meeting. On Sunday, October 27th, Svetlana Bignova, Grachev's deputy, sent an email to Goldstone, Emin Agalarov, Kavaladze, Grachev, and Benyaminov. She wrote, quote, "Please let them know that on Tuesday, Mr. Putin will make his decision." Close quote. Aras Agalarov was personally involved in the effort to secure a meeting. Irakli Kavaladze recalled that, in approximately October, Aras Agalarov received a call from Dmitry Peskov, Putin's press secretary. Kavaladze was in Aras Agalarov's office and overheard Agalarov relay Trump's interest to meet with Putin. Kavaladze believes Peskov told Aras Agalarov that he would get back to Agalarov. According to Aras Agalarov, quote, "When I told the presidential administration that Trump was coming, and I told them what kind of event we were hosting and how it will be seen by many people all over the world, the presidential administration responded that Vladimir Putin would like to meet Mr. Trump." Close quote. In an interview with Aras Agalarov that has only partially been published, Agalarov was asked why Putin wanted to meet with Trump. Agalarov replied, quote, "Well, first of all, I convinced him to. You know, the government here often pays visits to exhibitions, and we have a lot of national exhibitions taking place here. And I remember once, when Putin was visiting one of the exhibitions, I told him that we will have Donald Trump here for one of these events, and we would have an audience of many people. Putin pays attention to events like the Olympic Games, Formula One, FIFA World Cup. He is interested in global events, and of course he was interested in this event. He thought he should meet this person who brought this global event to Russia. That was the main reason." Close quote. In late October 2013, Aras Agalarov was scheduled to receive the Order of Honor, one of the highest civilian awards in Russia, from President Putin. In an October 28th email to Graf, Shugart noted that, quote, "Aras is being awarded some sort of Medal of Freedom by Putin at the Kremlin tomorrow, and he is hoping to set a meeting with Mr. Trump." Close quote. On October 29th, 2013, Shugart, who was in Moscow, emailed Graf a series of photos of Aras Agalarov receiving the award from Putin. She wrote, quote, "This was just sent to me. They were discussing DJT while this was happening. Stay tuned." Close quote. Later that day, Graf responded, quote, "Well, I think if this is a serious and substantial offer to meet Putin, DJT would reconsider his travel plans. Let's talk when you know more." Close quote. Shugart replied, quote, "I'll know more in the morning, but it sounds serious. I told my contact it would be major reshuffling and it would need to be worth it. Did you give him, Donald Trump, a heads up?" Close quote. Graf responded she had. The following day, October 30th, Graf wrote to Shugart, quote, "Any news on Putin?" Close quote. Shugart replied, quote, "No, but at least I made Emin aware of the situation tonight at the event. We are following up in the AM. He said the meeting is definitely happening. He just isn't sure if Putin wants 7th, 8th, or 9th. He was told 7th, but hasn't received confirmation on information." Close quote. On October 30th, 2013, Roman Benyaminov and Goldstone, who both work for Emin Agalarov, exchanged an email titled, quote, "To do," close quote. The text of the email consists of a list of tasks, primarily related to Emin Agalarov. One item on the list was simply, quote, "Trump Putin," close quote. Shugart recalled she, quote, "knew there was a desire," close quote, "to meet with Putin and, quote, they all felt they were going to be able to make it happen," close quote. Shugart said she was working on arranging the meeting on a daily basis and that, quote, "every time I spoke to him, Trump, leading up to the pageant, he wanted to know if it was set," close quote. Kavaladze has said that a few days before the pageant, Kavaladze was in Aris Agalarov's office, and Agalarov mentioned that he was trying to invite President Vladimir Putin to the pageant. Ultimately, a date for meeting with Putin prior to the pageant was not secured, and Trump did not arrive in Moscow early. Putin attending the pageant on short notice appeared unlikely. However, the question of whether there would be a meeting with Putin while Trump was in Moscow remained unresolved. The Miss Universe pageant in Moscow. On October 31st, 2013, the Crocus Group and the Miss Universe organization hosted a charity auction. The initial guest list for the event, which includes individuals with ties to the highest level of the Russian government, military, intelligence services, organized crime, Russian banks, and Russian energy companies, among others, offers some insight into the Agalarovs' social and professional network in Moscow. Some of the individuals on the Agalarovs guest list have participated in Russian influence operations targeting the United States and its allies. Some have significant connections to the Russian intelligence services, and some are currently sanctioned by the United States. On Thursday, November 7th, Donald Trump was scheduled to attend Billy Graham's birthday in North Carolina with Melania Trump. At 9 p.m. on November 7th, Donald Trump and Keith Schiller were scheduled to board the private airplane of Phil Ruffin. Flight records indicate that the flight departed at 9:15 p.m. for Moscow. Friday, November 8th. Trump's flight from North Carolina was scheduled to arrive at Moscow's Vnukovo Airport at 2:45 p.m. on November 8th. Schiller and Trump were scheduled to be met at the airport in Moscow by Nelson Feliciano, the head of security for the Miss Universe organization. Trump was scheduled to be picked up by two cars, an armored Mercedes S550 for Trump and Schiller, and a second car that would include Feliciano and members of Emin Agarov's security team. The cars were to be accompanied by a Russian police escort to the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Shugart recalled that the police escort was provided by local authorities and that Trump's driver in Moscow was hired by the Agalarovs specifically for the Miss Universe event. Roman Benyaminov told the committee that he was, quote, aware of people who work with Emin serving in the military and have some special training in the military, close quote, and that several private security firms were involved in the pageant in Moscow. On November 7th, Emin Agalarov directed Benyaminov to work with Agalarov's head of security to confirm Trump's security guard. Shugart recalled that the Agalarovs designated the security guard. Shugart said that because Trump was not there long, Trump, quote, had a police escort and I know a car and driver. There were a couple of people that were there. I just don't know who they were, but they were definitely local, close quote. Schiller told the committee he did not recall who picked them up at the airport or who drove them or what vehicle they were in or where they went. He also did not recall doing any vetting of the transportation entities or arrangements for Donald Trump or having any communication with the Agalarovs organization to coordinate. According to Graf's itinerary, Trump was scheduled to arrive at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel at 4 p.m. According to the itinerary, Trump was scheduled to do a short interview with a television host, A.J. Calloway, at the Ritz-Carlton at 5:10 p.m. Publicly available information indicates that the interview with Callaway took place, though the timing is not clear. Trump was scheduled to depart the hotel at 5:15 p.m. for an event at Nobu, a restaurant that was hosted by heiress Agalarov and Russia's largest bank, the state-owned Sberbank, from 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. This included a 20-minute question-and-answer meet and greet, followed by an optional private dinner. According to Goldstone, who attended, Trump was the focus of the event, which had been organized for approximately 20 prominent Russian business and banking leaders. According to Emin Agalarov, the event was, quote, for Sberbank top partners and clients, close quote. Neither Emin Agalarov nor Goldstone recalled names of any of the attendees other than the head of Sberbank, Herman Greff. Greff has significant ties to Putin. Redacted. Following the pageant, Trump wrote to Greff. The report contains the letter from Trump to Greff. November 11, 2013. Mr. Herman Greff, Chairman and CEO, Sberbank. Dear Herman, it was wonderful being with you in Moscow. I hope you enjoyed yourself as much as I did. You have done an absolutely fantastic job, and I look forward to seeing Sberbank in the #1 position, not easy, in the not-too-distant future. Whenever you are in New York, please feel free to call, and we will have lunch or dinner. With best wishes, sincerely, Donald J. Trump. P.S. Mr. Agalarov is wonderful man and developer. End of letter. Goldstone told the committee that the Nobu event lasted 30 to 45 minutes. Goldstone did not recall additional substantive information about the meeting. Trump may have gone to the hotel following the Nobu event. At 9:30 p.m. on November 8th, Trump was scheduled to depart for Crocus City Hall, where the Miss Universe rehearsal had been taking place from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Shugart recalled Emin Agalarov showing Trump around the Crocus City complex on Friday, November 8th. Shugart also recalled that there was a meeting where the building of a Trump Tower in Moscow was briefly discussed. She recalled, quote, it was an impromptu meeting with Emin, which is the only time I heard a Trump Tower Moscow being discussed. It was Friday because Emin had shown his whole Crocus City complex. Emin had a plan to call it, to do part of that complex and call it Manhattan. So that's what I remember them saying, oh, and a Trump Tower for Manhattan would be good, close quote. Shugart further recalled, quote, I want to say that meeting was during rehearsal on Friday when he met, right after he met the contestants, close quote. Shugart said that Phil Ruffin joined the meeting, but Aris Agalarov did not. Trump wrote a letter to Phil Ruffin following the pageant that referenced, quote, making the rounds of the city, close quote, but the timing of that activity is unclear. The committee included a copy of that letter. It is to Mr. Phil Ruffin. Dear Phil, it was great spending time with you in Moscow and making the rounds of the city in the hopes of the purchase or development of a project. If we decide to go forward, which I hope we will, I have no doubt it will be a wonderful success. Personally, I like the concept of a residential tower, but perhaps a mixed-use building would be best. Let's see how it all turns out. It is important that we make a good decision. With best wishes, sincerely, Donald J. Trump. End of letter. The night before the pageant, Trump was scheduled to attend Aris Agalarov's birthday party at 10 p.m. All 86 Miss Universe contestants were also scheduled to attend. The event was held at Zaffarano, a restaurant in the Crocus complex, and was attended by several hundred people. Shugart, who went to the party, was told that the, quote, Russian elite, close quote, were in attendance, along with the contestants and many of Aris Agalarov's friends and family members. Redacted. At the event, Trump was photographed with Igor Krutoy. Redacted. Kmetov is an associate of Paul Manafort, Konstantin Kalemnik, and others. Shugart recalled that she stayed with Trump for most of the party, and that she was there for, quote, a few hours, close quote. Shugart recalled that she left the party around midnight and that Trump and Schiller were still there. Goldstone estimated that, quote, the earliest he, Trump, would have left is probably 1 a.m., maybe a little after that. Then you've got this 40-minute or so drive back into the center of Moscow, close quote. Goldstone recalled that he remained at the party until Trump and Schiller left to return to the hotel, again with a police escort and security. Emin Agalarov told the committee that he stayed at the party and did not return to the hotel with Trump and Schiller. Several items on the hotel room bill may indicate additional social activity following the birthday party. According to documents produced by Ritz-Carlton Moscow, Trump was initially booked in the presidential suite, but that reservation was later canceled, and Trump was moved to a different room, a Carlton suite. Despite Trump's scheduled arrival on November 8th being known significantly in advance, his room was reserved and paid for an additional 2 nights prior to arrival, starting on November 6th. The committee was not able to determine why this advance reservation took place. On November 7th, Feliciano emailed to Svetlana Bignova, Paula Shugart, and others, stating that, quote, Keith has also requested a person to stand in front of room when Trump is in the rooms. I will work on that and hope to have someone provide, close quote. Witnesses the committee spoke with did not have any knowledge of this taking place. Schiller told the committee that, usually, after Trump was in his room, Schiller, quote, would stand out there maybe for a little bit, close quote, and then go to his room, and that was what happened in Moscow. Schiller told the committee that, generally, the preference when traveling was for Schiller to have the room next to Trump. However, that was not always possible. On Friday, November 8th, Goldstone emailed a Crocus employee named Katya Kosenkova to inform her that, quote, it appears Trump needed a second room for his head of security, Keith, close quote, but that room had not been previously booked. Goldstone wrote that, quote, they got a second room, but Emin says for you to handle the charge, sick, close quote. It is not clear which room Schiller stayed in. On the way to Trump's room, possibly on the evening of November 8th, Schiller recalled telling Trump that Schiller had been approached at a meeting earlier in the day by a man who offered to send 5 women to Trump and Schiller's rooms. Schiller recalled, quote, I told him, Trump, that later on that evening, we just laughed. I thought it was as a joke. I told him as we were walking to the room, I said, one of these clowns or something to that effect made this proposal, and I thought it was funny, and he, Trump, just laughed, and that was the end of it, close quote. It is not clear, based on Schiller's recollection, where or when the offer was made or by whom. Schiller told the committee that the offer was not made by either of the Agalarovs, who were the only people in the room that Schiller recognized. The man who approached Schiller was wearing a suit and tie and made the offer in English. Schiller recalled that the man who made the offer was one of the people in a meeting, and that, quote, there was a bunch of people in suits and ties talking, close quote, sitting around a, quote, large table, close quote, and there were, quote, restaurant-type, close quote, people serving hors d'oeuvres. Schiller recalled Emin and Aras Agalarov being at the meeting, and Schiller referred to it as a business-related meeting. Schiller believed that there may have been Europeans and Russians present at the meeting, but that English was being spoken. According to Schiller, the offer was not made in front of a group, but there were other people in the room. Regarding the offer, Schiller told the committee, quote, I don't know if it was a joke, but I took it as a joke, close quote. Nevertheless, Schiller also told the committee, quote, I took it serious, and I made it very clear. Don't even try that. Don't even attempt, and it's not happening. I put an end to it immediately, close quote. Schiller said, quote, I would remember if that happened. I don't recall. I know that didn't happen, close quote. When asked how he knew nothing happened, Schiller told the committee, quote, because, well, while I was with him, I know it wouldn't happen, because he would never tolerate that, and I would never allow it as well, not on my watch. So I know. It just wouldn't happen. It's never happened, close quote. Saturday, November 9, 2013. On Saturday, November 9th at 11 a.m., Trump was scheduled to participate in filming a music video with Emin Agalarov at the Ritz-Carlton, Moscow. Roman Benyaminov recalled that after Trump arrived to film the video, he briefly greeted people in the room, then was given a microphone and makeup. Benyaminov told the committee, quote, "I remember him, Trump, sitting down at a conference table. A couple takes. It didn't take long at all, and then he departed. It was all very quick and mechanical almost," close quote. Emin Agalarov has said that Trump was only present at the music video filming for 10 minutes. At 12 p.m., Trump was scheduled to depart for a press conference at Crocus City Hall that was taking place at 12:30 p.m. According to Shugart, following the press conference, Trump did an interview with Thomas Roberts of MSNBC, who was a host for the pageant. Between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m., Trump's schedule included, quote, "full dress rehearsal," close quote, and, quote, "return to hotel," close quote, without specific times. Shugart recalled that Trump did return to the hotel midday. The next event on the itinerary was not until 7:30 p.m., when Trump was scheduled to depart the hotel for the pageant. There are several events that may have taken place during this unscheduled time. Kavaladze told the committee that Trump visited Agalarov estate. Emin Agalarov did not recall if Trump visited Agalarov estate. Agalarov said that Kavaladze would have been the one to arrange it, and that Aras Agalarov would have wanted to show Trump the property. Emin Agalarov told the committee that he had been busy preparing for the pageant concert and may have skipped the visit. Scenes from Emin Agalarov's music video were filmed at Agalarov estate. However, the music video scenes that featured Trump appear to have been filmed at the hotel. On November 9, 2013, Trump wrote on Twitter that he had received, quote, "a great tour of Moscow," close quote. Goldstone told the committee that in the afternoon, Emin Agalarov had shown Trump around Crocus, and that Trump had, quote, "gone on this little drive around the property," close quote. Goldstone stated that, quote, "Emin wanted to show him, Trump, some of the Crocus structure and parts, and that was it. He, Emin, said he would do that before the press conference," close quote. Goldstone told the committee that Emin showed Trump, quote, "some of the new developments." At that point, they were talking about this idea of possibly a Trump Tower. He, Emin, showed him, Trump, where that might be built, close quote. Emin Agalarov told the committee that he did not recall taking Trump on a tour or doing any sightseeing. However, he did recall pointing out parts of the city surrounding Trump's hotel. By November 9, 2013, joint business discussions appeared to be moving forward. RT, the Russian government-sponsored news outlet, quoted Trump as saying, quote, "I have plans for the establishment of business in Russia. Now, I am in talks with several Russian companies to establish this skyscraper," close quote. The same RT story quoted Aras Agalarov, telling the Russian news agency Itar TASS, quote, "We started talking about joint work in the field of real estate a few days ago," close quote. Separately, the issue of a Trump-Putin meeting remained unresolved. Goldstone told the committee that the unscheduled time on the afternoon of Saturday, November 9th, was intentionally left open on Trump's itinerary in the event that the meeting with Putin was accepted at the last minute. Goldstone recalled, quote, "We allowed a period of time on the day of the pageant around 4 p.m., 3 or 4 p.m., We didn't fill it with anything, just in case there was a meeting, maybe there was a call, maybe there was something. We left a little bit of time so that if it did happen, he would be able to react. Me, personally, I asked on numerous occasions to Emin, is there going to be a call? Is there going to be a meeting? We have to know. The schedule's very, very tight." And the answer was always, "We'll hear from my dad. We'll hear from the Kremlin," close quote. Goldstone continued, quote, "The most likely time looked to be around 4. What in fact happened was that about that time, that's when a call took place. So we were told that there was a call. We were called into a room a bit like this, a conference room, and Emmons said, "You know, my dad's going to get the answer. Is there going to be a meeting? Is there not going to be a meeting?" Mr. Trump was there. Paula, myself, Eris, Emmon. I'm not sure who else, probably Keith. Eris took a call, which was translated through Emmon. He's saying that the call is from a man named Dmitry Peskov, who is the spokesperson, who has a message that says that President Putin is very sorry, but because the King of Holland has been delayed on an official visit to the Kremlin, he's unable to make time to receive Mr. Trump. He wishes him well, and he says that he'd like to invite him on his next visit to meet with him, whenever or wherever that should be within Russia. And he actually said to him that, if he could, he'd like to invite him to the Sochi Winter Olympics. If not, at the next possible time that Mr. Trump might be in Russia, he would do everything he could to meet with him. And that was it. We knew at that point there was no meeting, no call going to take place, and that was the call that determined that." Close quote. Regarding the call, Goldstone was uncertain, but he told the committee, quote, "Eris may have passed over the phone briefly to Mr. Trump to say, 'Thank you, hello, and thank you.' But if he did, it was literally a hello and thank you. It's in my mind that that may have happened, but the bulk of it was Eris and Peskov." Close quote. Goldstone believed the call took place before a press conference that Trump participated in later that day. At 7:30 p.m., Trump was scheduled to depart to Crocus City Hall for the Miss Universe pageant. The red carpet prior to the pageant was scheduled to begin at 8 p.m. Alex Saper and Rodham Rosen may have ridden with Trump and Schiller to the event. Additionally, at some point on the evening of June 9th, likely after the pageant, Trump signed a plaque in the shape of a star for Eris Agalarov and Emin Agalarov. Shugart recalled Trump being backstage at approximately 9 p.m. According to Trump's itinerary, from 10 p.m. to midnight, the Miss Universe live show was scheduled to take place. Trump sat next to Aras Agalarov, and Agalarov's social media manager Artem Klyushin and his then-wife sat behind them. Although Putin did not attend the pageant, he reportedly sent a senior Kremlin official, Vladimir Kosin, in his place. Kosin may have already had a connection to Aras Agalarov. Redacted. Shugart told the committee, quote, "While we were there at the pageant, he, Trump, had told me, it might have been right afterwards, but I think it came up at the pageant, that if anyone asked, for me to allude to the fact that Putin had been there, and that he said that no one would know because he could have come in when the lights went down for the show." Close quote. The pageant was followed by a press event, coronation ball, and an after-party at Crocus Expo Hall, 16, from midnight to 3 a.m. Goldstone told the committee, quote, "It was a very fluid thing. If Trump wanted to go to the party, we knew he had to leave that night to be back in the States, and nobody knew exactly when he was going to leave. I had asked a number of times to Paula and to Keith. Nobody knew exactly when, but then he said he would go to the after-party." Shugart recalled that Trump had a press conference following the pageant and arrived at the after-party around 12:30 a.m. Goldstone recalled that Trump was seated in a VIP enclave, but that there were lots of people around. Shugart told the committee that there were approximately 200 people in the VIP area. Goldstone said that Trump appeared to be having a good time and stayed later than they had planned, leaving around 3 a.m. Goldstone said he was told that the bags had been packed and were in the car, and that Trump left the party directly to the airport. But he had no personal knowledge of this other than seeing Trump leave the party. Paula Shugart also recalled that Trump left directly for the airport. According to Goldstone, quote, "At the last minute," close quote, A.J. Calloway asked Trump if he could fly home with Trump and likely did join the flight. Although Trump used Phil Ruffin's airplane in both directions, and although Ruffin and his wife attended the pageant, it appears they flew separately in both directions. At 2:30 a.m. on November 10th, Trump was scheduled to depart the after-party for Moscow's Vnukovo Airport. Trump's flight was scheduled to depart for Newark, New Jersey at 3:30 a.m. in Moscow and was scheduled to arrive in Newark at 3:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Public reporting indicates that the flight was approximately 30 minutes behind schedule, taking off at 3:58 a.m. and landing at 4:11 a.m. As the pageant concluded, discussion of future business continued. On November 10th, Emin responded to an email from the architect William McGee, informing McGee that, quote, "We may do a tower with him, Trump, now," close quote. The following day, November 11th, Trump wrote on Twitter to heiress Agalarov, praising the Agalarovs and stating that Trump Tower Moscow would be next. The following day, Emin Agalarov replied on Twitter with thanks and wrote that they should make Trump Tower Moscow happen. On November 12th, Olivia Cellini from the Trump Organization emailed Goldstone and Benyaminov, quote, "Can you please send me Aris's email address? Mr. Trump would like to send him a message," close quote.